Kevin Durant was absolutely incredible in those finals runs. As you know,
Right.
you watched it. We all watched it. Kevin Durant was absolutely insane. Steph Curry got double teamed probably 7 times the amount that KD did in a given series.
All right, that prompted this back and forth between KD and Draymond on Twitter. Durant started by tweeting, "From my view of it, this is 100% false." Draymond then weighed in saying, "You have to learn to listen to full takes and not snippets before you get baited into tweeting, champ." KD then responded, "Oh, I've seen it, my brethren. I appreciate the compliments, but I disagree with what you said about double teams. That's all. I love the show." All right. Who do you agree with here, Stephen A? Are you with Draymond or KD on this one?
Well, I'm with KD on it, but let's give both of them credit and props. There's no hating going on. There's no insults. There's nothing like that, and so much was made about when they had their falling out, which they ultimately addressed with Draymond's podcast. And by the way, I think he's doing a great job with his podcast, even though he was what Colin Cowherd did, the great Colin Cowherd there. The bottom line is that when I watch the NBA Finals now, Draymond is far more aware than I am of what's happening on a basketball court that he's participating in. This brother's a basketball savant. But I got news for you. So does Kevin Durant. He knows some basketball his damn self. And if he says that he respectfully disagrees, 100% false, that Steph Curry was doubled 7 more times than him, I believe KD. Because when you look at KD's on the court. He's got a career 30.3 point per game average in the finals, by the way. That time he was MVP the first go-round, he averaged 35 and 8 on 53% shooting, I believe, in the finals against LeBron. Kevin Durant was something else. Now, when you look at Kevin Durant, with Steph Curry, his movement without the basketball, the switching and things of that nature, that all comes into play. But that's one of the reasons why I think that it's hard to fathom that he was doubled, because with their willingness to be so selfless, sharing of the basketball, not necessarily having that quintessential Chris Paul type point guard that just brings the ball up the court and has the ball in his hands a vast majority of the time. That's not the Golden State Warriors. It certainly wasn't the Golden State Warriors when Kevin Durant was there with Steph Curry. So as a result of that, why would you be doubling Steph Curry that much if he didn't have the ball the way that, say, a Chris Paul or a quintessential point guard would have the ball? I'm just thinking about it from a logical perspective. I'm going on recall, too. I didn't see a guy doubled 7 times more than Kevin Durant. That's not what I witnessed, because I didn't see a guy that had the ball in his hands with that degree of regularity while Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson was on the court with him. That's why I lean towards saying I agree with Kevin Durant on this particular situation. I do agree with Draymond that Steph Curry might have been doubled a lot. He might have been doubled more than Kevin Durant. But 7 times more, I think that was a bit excessive, and I think that's what KD was saying.
Well, it's not the way Golden State plays. Move the ball, everybody touches it. So I don't know if Curry's going to have the ball enough times in a scenario where they're going to double team him, and he's 100% right. I like to have Durant for once in his life, and I love him. I'm with you. I love him. I love the guy. But I like the guy, and he should never have left Oklahoma City to go to Golden State. I also believe that, too. You said that earlier in the show. I was all over him for that. He took the easy way out on a team that won 73 games. That bothered me, too. But I do love him. Does he have to comment every time somebody says something that might be a negative? Every single time he's yelling at Kevin, let it go. It's not that big a deal. Let it go. He's always got. It drives you crazy. He's too sensitive.
Not me.
It's too sensitive, Steve. He says
it's just
all
fun
the time.
for him, though? You think maybe he likes kind of like messing with it and just having fun on Twitter?
Well, he's done it. Rappaport, he went screaming. He went nuts with the Michael Rappaport thing. He's just too much on it for me.
But let me ask you a question.
That
Let me have some fun with Dougie here for a second. Let me ask you a question, Doug. Because you host the radio show, and got a lot of callers calling up in there every day, right? And how many times do you find yourself behind the microphone wishing? I mean, can the players say something? Can they speak up for themselves? I mean, all of this stuff is going on. Could you give us some clarification?
Can we hear a quote?
That's exactly. That's what he gave you. What's wrong with Kevin? Kevin Durant didn't insult anybody. He didn't argue. He said, I heard what my teammates said. I believe this is 100% false. What's wrong with that?
You're right. Is it that big a deal?
No. What I'm saying to you is this. You are right getting into it with Michael Rappaport. That was excessive. No call for that. No cause for that whatsoever. That was a bit extreme. Some of the other arguments you get with somebody with 2 followers on Twitter, something like that, yeah, that's fine. You're absolutely right about that. But we're talking basketball. And he's saying from a basketball perspective, no, Steph Curry was not doubled 7 more times than me. I would think that Mad Dog Russo, all right,
Would
who
like
is talking
it, would
all
like
the time.
it, would like the fact that he responded. All right.
Like and appreciate the fact that a player directly responded with his take on the scenario without getting personal, without being offended, without being disrespectful in any way. He just talked basketball and said, hey, we disagree. I like that. Last time I checked, Doggy likes that. Doggy appreciates that. When people who are knowledgeable about the sports, who are actual participants in the sport, take time to clarify their position on the sport. I thought that Mad Dog Russo was about
Fair. Maybe I'm down on Green. Who the heck knows? I mean, but the bottom line is, do we need? I mean, first off, Durant was the best player on the team.
Yes.
So why does anybody knock him about? Well, Curry was doubled 7 more times than he was.
Well, that's what Draymond.
But that's ridiculous. He was the best player. Durant was the best player on that Warrior team.
Yes,
Not even an issue.
Yes, he was.
He's the best player. So when you are the best player on the team, why would you say anything? Well, you know what? He was the best player because Curry got double teamed 7 teams.
Then that would be your problem with Draymond, not KD.
Well, fair.
KD didn't do anything.
Why would you respond to something that doesn't make any sense?
It does make sense to Draymond. He would know. KD just disagrees. I like that. We're learning about basketball from 2 former teammates who were champions.
Watch the games. I don't need to be taught. I see the games. I'm watching the game.
You can see the
Some
game.
of you're up there in the front.
You can see the game, and there's plenty of people who watch the game that don't know what the hell they're watching, and you know it.
I know what I'm watching.
I know you do, and I know. I'm not saying you. I'm saying they're educating the audience.
Never.
I'm not implying that you didn't know. I'm saying you're educating the audience. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.